Hello there. Welcome into a Thursday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which you can find wherever fine radio streaming apps are given away because they are free to download and free to use. And they're both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. You know the deal. Veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. I do have one guest, and I'll tell you about him. You'll like it. It's good. Wide-ranging conversation. In the meantime, you and me, 719-247-1313. Give me your calls and your texts. Producer Ray Dominguez is standing by, eagerly awaiting your communication. Let's start with the breaking news of the afternoon. And look, if you're an Avalanche fan, I understand that you had your heart set on the Avalanche bringing back one of their old friends. But could they interest you in someone whose last name is Waugh? Nicholas Waugh, acquired today for a conditional first-round pick in next year's draft and a fifth-rounder this year. Now, you may remember him from his time in Vegas, where he helped that insufferable franchise win a Stanley Cup just a couple of years ago. More recently, he's been in Toronto, which, if you haven't been paying attention, is a bit of a dumpster fire right now. He was part of the package that landed Mitch Marner in Vegas. Now, I understand that there is a certain level of disappointment with this being the move to address the center position in the bottom six. But we have to be real here. It was always going to be difficult to make the dream Nazem Kadri reunion happen. Especially as you've seen with the moves that not only Colorado made today, but what Edmonton did yesterday. It's a seller's market. And by all indications, Calgary has been unwilling to eat any of Nazem Kadri's contract. And Nazem Kadri, which you could say unequivocally is a better player than Nicholas Waugh, would cost more than what the Avs just gave up for Nicholas Waugh. So in a seller's market, it was always going to be difficult for the Avalanche to pull off the dream scenario. And I mentioned yesterday the idea of swapping Kadri somehow for Valeri Nichushkin. Like, I get the math, but you would essentially be opening up a hole in your top six, which I think is less than ideal by trading Valeri Nichushkin. Now, you could argue whether adding Nazem Kadri would be a greater, would be a net positive, but it would force the Avalanche to go out and make another move. And again, seller's market. Would they have been able to pull something off? What I will say about Nicholas Waugh is that if you just take this move in a vacuum, and don't bring the Nazem Kadri stuff into it, you just look at who Nicholas Waugh is as a player. He is exactly what you want in your bottom six. He's got, as Jared Bednar likes to say, some grit and sandpaper to his game, which is the identity of your bottom six. He is far more concerned with the defensive end of the ice than he is the offensive end, which I think you would have to say the Avalanche have plenty of players who are more concerned with the offensive end of the ice. He wins more faceoffs than he loses. Even this year, which is considered a down year from what he was in Vegas, still winning 52% of his faceoffs. And another aspect of Nicholas Waugh that the Avs clearly have prioritized a veteran with Cup experience, where a deep run into the playoffs is not going to be a foreign concept to him. That's what they got in Brett Kulak in their previous trade, and that's what they get with Nick Waugh. And with a fully healthy Avalanche team, you could see him with his old buddy, Victor Olofsson. They played together in Vegas. You could have Ross Colton on that line, and you could essentially put Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor, and Yoel Kiviranta on the same line, which would leave Jack Drury surplus to requirements, which is another aspect of this I want to get into. But for now, let's be real about it and say that the chances that the Avs are 100% healthy in the postseason, fairly unlikely. Fairly unlikely. So you could pencil in Waugh into the bottom six and configure the rest of it as you see fit, but you know that one of those names that you're going to write down may not be available, which we in the business call depth. It's a positive thing. It's a thing that Chris McFarland has prioritized over the last 18 months, as you well know. Look, this isn't the move, right? This isn't the thing to send shockwaves throughout the league. But it's, and I always say this about Chris McFarland because this is, other than the Mikko Rantanen trade, Brock Nelson as well recently, it's a lot of tidy business being done. This is a good hockey trade for the Colorado Avalanche. It's not going to blow you away. It's not going to make you already, plan on where you're going to stand on the parade route, but it's a good move. And let's be honest too about this. It is incumbent, how this season has gone, it is incumbent on Dallas and Minnesota to make the needle moving moves. And Minnesota already has with Quinn Hughes, certainly, but they're chasing Colorado. Does Colorado need to, you'd like them to, again, for the Nazem Kadri move, but do they need to completely reconfigure this team? And the answer is no. They don't need to do that. What they need to do is raise their floor as much as they can, and Kulak and Waugh allow them to do that. But we'll see what Dallas and Minnesota do. We are less than 24 hours away, 22 hours-ish away from the trade deadline. I don't think this precludes the Avs from going out and making another move. But the main order item of business, I should say, that's what this move was today. Now, do the Avs look to bolster the wing position? I think that they're still milling around trying to do that. So there's still time for the Avalanche to do something. But for now, they brought in two veterans, defensive-minded, with an eye on goal prevention, adding more depth to this team, and raising the floor, and putting the onus on Dallas and Minnesota to maybe take a little bit bigger swing to catch them. Now, there's another move that was made, just while I'm on the topic, by Chris McFarland last night. And it was a move that also, like addressing the third line center position, which he did today with Nick Waugh, kind of answered some of the outcry from Avalanche fans. Because there is a void that has been left by a move that the Avalanche have made recently. And that void has been addressed with a 5'9", 177-pound puck-moving defenseman that was born on May 12th, 1998. The Avalanche last night, by acquiring Nick Blankenburg from the Nashville Predators, essentially have reacquired Sam Girard. Blankenburg is 1 inch shorter, 7 pounds heavier, but shares the same birthday. Even the year. They are both 27 years old. Couple months away from being 28. This is like downright spooky what Chris McFarland did last night. He essentially reacquired Sam Girard. Andrew Brunette, the Nashville head coach, even called Blankenburg Nashville's Rudy. Except Rudy, among the Avalanche fan base, is a villain, is a reviled figure. Rudy on the Colorado Avalanche is the guy that gets blamed for every shortcoming the Avalanche have. So, Nick Blankenburg, welcome to Colorado. You're the new Sam Girard. I don't know if you're going to love it here. But for Avalanche fans, this is good. Because now they have someone to pin everything on, whether it's this guy's fault or not. Because I don't know if you've noticed, in just the week or two that Sam Girard has been gone, people in this state have kind of scrambled a little bit to try and find who to point the finger at. Right? With the Nuggets, it's easy. Michael Porter goes out, Cam Johnson comes in, like for like. Everyone's blaming Cam Johnson. With the Avalanche, it was trickier once they moved Sam Girard out. And it left people reaching a little bit. Like, say, I don't know, maybe saying that Gabriel Landeskog has been disappointing this year. Like, it's just a hypothetical. Not that anyone would say it, especially anybody that is in the same profession that I am in. Certainly nobody with a microphone in any kind of platform would say such a thing. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. Not that it happened anywhere, especially on Denver Sports Radio over the last couple of days. But that's all fixed because Nick Blankenburg is back. Or should I say, Nick Blankenburg is here. Sam Girard is back. In all seriousness, good bit of business by the Avs. It's not what you were hoping for. And I don't even think it's what the Avalanche were hoping for. This is the consolation prize. I think you'll take it. When you really look at adding Nicholas Waugh, you take it, it makes sense, and the Avs upgraded, I think, at that position. And Chris McFarland, never one to be afraid to make a deal right at the deadline. And we still have time before 1 o'clock Mountain Time tomorrow. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Avs move acquiring Nicholas Waugh. That is actually our question of the day. If you follow us on Facebook at Extra Sports 1300 or 740 KVOR. I expect some disappointment, and I totally get that, but really dig into it, and I think some of that disappointment will go away. Coming up next, let's shift our focus to the Avalanche's roommates at Ball Arena, that being the Denver Nuggets, because Lou Dort of the OKC Thunder apologized and took full ownership of the trip of Nikola Jokic the other day. Oh, wait. No, wait. He plays for the Thunder. He didn't do that. I'll tell you what he did do next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Think you have the luck of the Irish? Enter to win our pot full of cash. So this will be a St. Paddy's Day you'll never forget with $5,000 in our Luck of the Irish giveaway. Just go to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest sponsored locally by the fine folks at Bullseye Plumbing, Heating, and Air. No luck needed when Bullseye's on target. I did something terrible during the break. So I was talking with our outstanding engineer, but definitely not somebody that hosts a show on one of our many radio stations in this building. And him and I were talking out in the hallway, and as we were parting ways, he said, "Have a good show." And I said, "You too." And I was just telling Ray, so I fly out to Vegas tomorrow for the Mountain West tournament. You will never, ever catch me responding to a gate agent or TSA security who wishes me a good flight, me saying "you too." I never do it. Never. So for me to mess that up with somebody that I see every day, we have conversations. You know, sometimes you get a little frazzled in an interaction with a stranger, and maybe you say something a little bit silly. Like, that's why people say "you too" when somebody at the airport wishes them a safe flight. But there I'm locked in. Around here with somebody that I talk to every single day, I slipped up. I messed up. And for that, I apologize to him because inexcusable. It's an inexcusable mistake by me. See what I just did there, by the way? That is what you call owning up to one's mistake. And you may say, Ryan, it's not a huge mistake. Come on, be easier on yourself. But no, any mistake I make, I want to take full ownership of, however big or small it may seem. If Lou Dort sees this show, he could learn a thing or two from me, if we're being honest. Because Lou Dort supposedly, allegedly, owned up to the trip of Nikola Jokic the other day. And when I saw that headline or some of those tweets, I was like, good. I don't want to curse Lou Dort's name forever. Just own up to it, and we're good. Okay? We're a very forgiving society. Here's the quote. That's a physical game, and there's limits to it. I went over the limit. Awesome, Lou Dort. Bravo. Owning up to it. You went over the limit. Fine. Happens to all of us. Who hasn't been compelled to trip another grown man in the heat of battle? Like, it happens to the best of us, but at least you owned up to it. But Lou Dort continued. I got the worst of it by getting thrown out of the game, but yeah, it was a high-level game. I'm a competitor, so I compete. Tripping is not competing. That's not a competitive thing. Competitors don't trip other human beings blatantly. But he essentially did exactly the thing that Mark Daigneault, his head coach, which chip off the old block, did in the wake of that OKC Denver game. Because Mark Daigneault started off and you're like, ooh, he's going to, like, you expect him to have the back of his player, but he's going to say, you know, Lou Dort lost his head. It wasn't. Nope. Midway through his answer, he pivots to, if that's going to be a flagrant 2, then I expect it when it happens to us. The persecution complex, the victimhood that this basketball team, which last time I checked, has the most important trophy in the sport in its headquarters. And they're acting like they're being unfairly persecuted, that they're the Rodney Dangerfield of the NBA. They get no respect. They're picked on, and it's just wrong. It's just nonsense. It's silly. If anything, Oklahoma City is one of the favorite. Can I say that? I'm not accusing NBA referees or the league of anything super nefarious here, but when it comes to the whistle, they get a favorable one. Well, we'll just say that, right? Not a lot of whistles on the defensive end, whole lot of them on the offensive end, especially when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has the basketball. So I don't know where this is all coming from. Why OKC thinks that they are being picked on, because they are not. They, in many cases, are the bullies. So, of course, the half ownership taken by Lou Dort makes its way to David Adelman, the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, and he had pretty much the response you would expect him to. This question is from Troy Rank of the Denver Post.
Dort said today that he understood, well, in looking back, why you guys were pissed off at the foul on Jokic. Does that mean anything?
No.
He acknowledged it?
No.
Nope. Because you did it. You did it. It wasn't in the heat of battle. It wasn't a natural thing that you did. It wasn't an oops, my bad. It was blatant. It was intentional. And as far as Lou Dort saying he got the worst of it, he got the worst of it only because Jokic didn't shred his knee on that trip. And my guess would be that somebody pointed out to David Adelman how Lou Dort actually really didn't take ownership of what happened. So any thought that you might have that things are going to calm down a little bit before Monday's rematch between the Nuggets and Thunder, yeah, don't count on it. Not that you wanted it to, if we're being honest. But the one thing that you can say going into that game on Monday is that the NBA officials have set a precedent that if you throw your hip and leg out in order to trip Nikola Jokic, you will not get away with that. That's one thing you can say in NBA officials' favor, is that they have set a precedent that cannot happen again on Monday, or they will call it. That's not really the actions that David Adelman is more concerned with. He's kind of concerned with everything else Oklahoma City does to Nikola Jokic.
And I'm going to keep saying this. I'm not saying this because I'm being biased to my own player. Nobody's being guarded like him in the league. Nobody. Nobody's going at the knees of other MVPs. No one's taking shots like he's taking. But that's our reality. And so we have to continue just to try to win games. He has to play through that physicality. I have to find place on the court where he can play in space. That's on me. So there's no excuses because if the whistle's not, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So the game continues. So we'll deal with it as long as we can. At the same time, I have no problem with him reacting. Reacting is part of being a human being, like I said. So if it continues, we'll react accordingly.
I can remember Shaquille O'Neal dealt with a lot of this, right? Different player, but same position, same kind of idea behind it, right? Teams did not know how to deal with Shaquille O'Neal until so they resulted in Hack-a-Shaq, right? Putting him on the line. But it was the same kind of deal where these teams went, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy. It's reached that level with Nikola Jokic. Teams don't know what to do with him defensively, or at least defensively within the agreed upon rules of basketball. So teams like OKC specifically have tried to find loopholes, tried to get away with things that are against the agreed upon rules of basketball in order to try to close the gap between their defenders and Nikola Jokic. And David Adelman is recognizing that this is a problem, especially in a 7-game series with OKC. When you compare it, and make no mistake about it, David Adelman is talking about matchups with OKC first and foremost. In a 7-game series, if Oklahoma City is able to defend Nikola Jokic the way they have consistently done it, and the Nuggets are not able to defend Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the same way, that now tips the scales to where OKC has the best player on the floor. Because Shai, with freedom of movement, or if you touch him, he's going to the free throw line, and Nikola Jokic, you can claw, scratch, trip him, then the difference between those two players is evened out a little bit. And this is what David Adelman is doing. It's the same thing Ime Udoka did when the Nuggets and Rockets met up twice in a week. Ime Udoka, after an overtime loss, complained incessantly about the officiating. But he was doing it to plant the seed for the next meeting. It's exactly what David Adelman is doing. Now, we shall see if Monday is officiated differently, and there's a lot of intrigue around that. A lot of people have been talking about how maybe one of OKC's superpowers is now going to be taken away from them, and how much that changes things in the NBA. Well, Monday will be the day. And if last night's any indication, not going to be much different, because Mike Brown, in the most polite way possible, talked about SGA and the whistle he gets. But again, that's not the issue to me. If SGA is going to be whistled that way, I think a lot of people are like, well, if Jokic, you can do this to Jokic, then you should be able to do it to SGA. That's not really what I think should happen. I would like Nikola Jokic to have the same freedom of movement and be able to go the free throw line as much as SGA. That's what I would like. I don't want the Denver Nuggets to be able to, treat SGA like the Pistons treated Michael Jordan. That's not what I think is the best outcome here. But it's a star whistle is a star whistle. SGA, Luka, Jokic, you go on down the list. Just because Jokic is bigger and stronger than some of these other guys does not mean that smaller guys should be able to foul him with reckless abandon. Shouldn't happen. And the problem is teams can't go to the hack-a-shack with Jokic because he makes his free throws. So this is all planting the seed for Monday. And a lot of eyes are going to be on the way this game is officiated. It's in OKC, and last night was a pretty high-profile game, and it didn't seem to me like there was any difference. Although the Knicks don't have a Nikola Jokic, it seemed like the game was officiated in a very similar fashion, where SGA went to the free throw line a lot, and the New York Knicks did not go the free throw line as much. So it's all building the anticipation for Monday. In the meantime, Nuggets hosting the LA Lakers tonight. You can hear the game on Extra Sports 1300 in what is I think a significant game. Not but in terms of perception, going into that Monday tilt with OKC, I'll get into that. Plus, the Broncos keeping one guy and maybe losing another from their AFC Championship team. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., make sure you log on to kvor.com or extrasports1300.com to pick up the sweet deal of the week from the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. It is a family membership that is valued at $175, on sale for just $87.50. That's 50% off, people, for a membership for the family. Plus, it gets you access to a whole bevy of other museums across the country if you are a world traveler. So check it out, extrasports1300.com or kvor.com for our extra sweet deal of the week, courtesy of our friends at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. A bit of clarification. Can't get any past the goalie on this show. Ray Dominguez brought up a fantastic point, right? With the SGA and Oklahoma City Thunder of it all. What is the point that most people are trying to make with OKC?
The point in my world is when they get the calls.
Correct.
Is more, don't get me wrong, the quantity they get is a little outlandish, but it's more when they get the calls. When it's a tight 2-point game, 3-point game, that's the
Exactly. And in the fourth quarter,
Mhm.
and I'm just saying free throws. I'm not even counting fouls.
Yeah.
Because that also adds to the number a little bit, the discrepancy between the Thunder and their opponents. But just free throws, OKC got to the free throw line in the fourth quarter against New York by a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
That is more the issue. Mike Brown said SGA does a great job of convincing the referees that he has, draw contact or been hit or something like that. So, yes, the sheer numbers, to be fair, weren't way out of line. But you got to watch these games and see when OKC, when the game is on the line, in a game with OKC, Denver, OKC, New York, these elite teams, they're going to inevitably come down to the wire.
Yeah.
And what coaches are worried about is that the lion's share of the calls go the way OKC's way down the stretch, and are they deserved? And that's Mike Brown is a little bit more upset with SGA and the whistle he gets. David Adelman's more upset about the whistle that Nikola Jokic doesn't get, but it's about crunch time, fourth quarter, down the stretch, when it matters the most. More often than not, OKC is going to the free throw line more than their opponents, and coaches don't like that.
No, they do. Are flopping technical still a thing? I know they tried it for a year. They anybody.
I haven't seen anybody.
Yeah. So my question would be, when there's a challenge on the floor for one of these calls that, Shea goes up, doesn't get touched, but, just throws a body and flails.
Mm-hmm.
And they reverse it to, it's not a foul. Why can't they charge Shea, and I'm not calling Shea out because everybody does it, with the flopping technical?
I'm a soccer guy.
Yeah.
I'm a hockey guy. Embellishment is a thing in hockey.
Mm-hmm.
You can't embellish the contact that you get. And in soccer, you will be carded if you dive. So I don't see why in the NBA, which is resembling soccer more and more every day, and you could say that's a terrible thing or a good thing or a neutral thing. But the fact of the matter it is, with what players try to do, I don't see why not.
Yeah. Because some of the way players throw their bodies and jump around, it slows down the game,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of what the NBA is trying to get rid of. And two, it's just, I don't know, it's just teaching people that as soon as you barely get your hand, and I'm not saying it's just OKC. Don't get me wrong. I love Jokic, but
this is what I'm saying. Not to interrupt, but this is what I'm saying. This is why I've kind of come to grips with the star treatment when it comes to the whistle.
Right.
And now that the Nuggets, and maybe it's a little self-serving, but most every team has a star of some caliber on their team now in the NBA. I look at it, and I think this is what David Adelman is talking about. He wants the star whistle for Jokic,
Yes.
not to take away the whistle that SGA get.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I look at it. Is if you can't touch Shea, don't touch Jokic.
Right.
That's kind of the way. I think some people might say, you know what? They might take it the other way. If the Thunder are allowed to mug Jokic, then the Nuggets should be allowed to mug SGA. I don't think that's a better version of basketball.
No, it's not a better version, but I think that's the argument everybody has. Like you said, OKC's defense versus playing defense against OKC. Okay, they're very physical, and they get a little away with a lot. But when you see the videos of them grabbing Jokic's jersey and nothing being done, that's the main issue. And I'm glad Adelman came out and said it.
And we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens on Monday. The game's in OKC. So I think it's less likely that the way the officials call the game is going to be wildly different. But we shall find out. And here's the other part of this. As I mentioned, the game's in the meantime. Tonight's game against the Lakers, 8 o'clock, Extra Sports 1300, if you'd like to tune in. I think this game and the Lakers game, or this game is the Lakers game. This game and the Knicks game tomorrow are ways to make, if you're a Nuggets fan, make you feel better about them going into Monday. Because I'll tell you, the Utah game the other night, and you and I were texting back and forth, Ray, that did not.
No,
we didn't watch that game and went, the Nuggets are fixed.
Yeah, no.
The fact that they, speaking of free throws,
see, that's the thing. They got those calls,
right? But that's going up against Utah,
right?
They went 24 times or something to the line.
It was
and I will say, to be fair, way too many. I thought the officials. I'll stick up for Utah a little bit. That was a ridiculous discrepancy.
Yeah,
in free throws.
Yeah, so Denver went 32 for 35, and then Utah went 22 for 26.
But didn't the Nuggets?
But again, that's a total.
But when did the Nuggets in the fourth quarter? That's all the offense the Nuggets generated.
That's the total. It's not the I think the Nuggets were within the bonus with like 8 minutes or 9 minutes left in the game.
It was ridiculous. And you and I were texting back and forth that this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the Nuggets have to be essentially free throw merchants in order to beat the Utah Jazz, a team that's definitely trying to lose.
Yeah, a team that didn't have 3 or 4 of its star players playing.
Yeah. It was as bad of a win as you could get. So now it's. And I always say it's not that you lose or that you win. It matters so much how you do it.
Yeah.
The Nuggets won that game on Monday, or what day was that? Tuesday. Monday. It was Monday.
Monday.
OKC was Sunday, second game of the back-to-back. Anyway.
No, it was Minnesota.
That's true. Yeah, Minnesota.
We just forget the Minnesota.
Right. Well, yeah, but probably better off doing that. Yeah. But it was Monday that they played Utah. That's not a way to win, to fill you with confidence for the next matchup with one of the NBA's upper echelon teams. So the Nuggets tonight, I'm expecting them to have some level of trouble with the Lakers.
Yes.
So I don't think that you'll come away from this game feeling warm and fuzzy about Denver, but especially tomorrow night's game against New York. If they get a win, and as long as it's not because of the fact that they shot, we're into the bonus 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, I think that's the one that can kind of propel the Nuggets a little bit and make Nuggets fans feel more confident going into the second matchup with OKC. Nothing right now tells me that the Nuggets are going to fare any better in OKC on Monday
No.
than they did on Friday.
No.
Nothing does.
Nothing does, because it's not like they had that physical game with OKC. Minnesota comes, it's like, all right, we're going to still show that we're a tough team
Mhm.
and get this win against like a rival. And they didn't play well that game. And then Utah, like we said, they won by 3 points in a game where they were getting all the calls. So nothing has shown me that they've improved and they're taking these losses and getting better,
Right. So
except getting Tyus Jones.
Tyus Jones and
Yeah.
David Roddy.
Yeah,
Don't forget,
don't forget.
former CSU Ram great David Roddy. So tonight's a lot like Utah, and I know Lakers are much better team than Utah, but it serves kind of the same purpose. Like the only thing there is for the Nuggets tonight is downside. There's only downside. If they lose to the Lakers, then it's going to be even worse tomorrow. I'll just let you know before tomorrow's show. The conversation is going to be even worse surrounding the Denver Nuggets if they lose tonight to LA. But the game on Friday is one of those that I think the Nuggets have to get tonight, but in some ways they also have to get tomorrow's game because just winning tonight against the Lakers, it's like, okay, and then you turn around and lose to the Knicks. And that's the other thing too. You and I were talking about this off the air. People are trying to, calm everybody down with the Denver Nuggets and pointing out that the year they won a title, they didn't exactly light the world on fire towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
And it's true. They did lose, what was it? 4 straight and 5 of 6 very late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams were Chicago, San Antonio, Brooklyn, Toronto. They beat Detroit and then lost to the Knicks. The reason why this is different is because the teams that the Nuggets are losing to are teams at their level.
Yeah.
Right? These are the teams, OKC, certainly they'll have to go through. Minnesota, you feel like they're going to have to go through them. On the other side of the bracket, so to speak, they've lost to Detroit, New York, and Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
These are teams that are worthy adversaries to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're losing and not just losing, again, how do you win and how do you lose?
Right.
The Nuggets falling flat on their face in crunch time in these games is what's so off-putting. It's easier to diminish or kind of get over the Nuggets who clearly had title aspirations,
Right.
stubbing their toe against teams that are going nowhere.
Because during that time they were the 1 seed and they were kind of falling to the 2, but they go back to the 1. So it was a little different. You're like, okay, they're still a dominant team. They're, like you said, stubbing their toe.
Mhm.
This time they were what, top 3 seed when Jokic came back, and now they're at what, 5 now, and
not that far out.
And not that far out playing. So that's where you get worried. Is
Right.
where are they going to end up seeding wise because of this stretch?
That and that's also another good point. Is that what was there to lose at that point during the title season versus what there is to lose here. So it's
with
the teams they're losing to, it's worse than that run that losing streak they had a couple of years ago. And the consequence of losing those games is also a little bit greater given where they are at in the standings. 719-24/7, 1313. More Drive Time Sports coming up next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Thursday. Appreciate you watching the show as you can do on a daily basis on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The handles at Extra Sports 1300 or at 740 KVOR. And while you're there, like, subscribe, and most importantly, comment, because this is an interactive experience. Speaking of interactivity, I will have a guest coming up in the next segment. His name is Hugh Johnson. He is a terrific writer for the Gazette. And him and I yesterday were conversing about how this weekend is kind of the perfect storm for both of us. Two of the main beats, if you want to call it that we are on, all converge in one weekend. So who better to have on to talk both the opening of the Switchback season and what Colorado College and Air Force hope are not the endings to their hockey season. So that's coming up here in less than 20 minutes. Couple of items when it comes to the Denver Broncos. We're all waiting to see who the Broncos will get from outside the organization. But the first order of business is obviously who are you going to keep that is on your team already. And the Broncos have extended offensive lineman Alex Palczewski for 2 more years. And I think that's I said this about Chris McFarland when he made the Nicholas Waugh trade today to address the third line center position. Tidy bit of business for George Payton and Sean Payton to keep him. Thought he filled in well this year. And I kind of feel like right now, the Broncos are really going to be fortifying the depth in the trenches in the draft. But the only way you can fortify your depth is if you keep the guys you already have and just add to it. So keeping Palczewski makes sense. The other report today is that the Broncos will lose John Franklin Myers. Now, there's a compensatory pick that maybe that the Broncos may be getting back when Franklin Myers signs with another team. But from a football standpoint, I think keeping John Franklin Myers would have been a good idea. It was a good pickup when they got him from New York, and he had a good season like a lot of guys in that front seven for the Denver Broncos. But they decided to go a little bit younger, a little bit more upside, and also cheaper with Malcolm Roach. They signed him to an extension during the season, which put the writing on the wall that John Franklin Myers wasn't going to come back. But it does create a need for depth on the defensive line, and that's why I expect the Broncos to address that. Maybe a little bit in free agency, I think more so in the draft. So John Franklin Myers gone, reportedly. Alex Palczewski stays. As far as the John Franklin Myers thing, one other piece here to this. This is what I say they should do with Alex Singleton. Right? If you can, even for a team that seems suddenly flush with cash because the Russell Wilson dead cap hit is gone, you still need to save where you can save. Save where it's reasonable to save. And I thought, even though John Franklin Myers, I think, is a better player than Malcolm Roach, I understood why they signed Malcolm Roach to the extension and are eventually letting John Franklin Myers go because they're trying to save and bet a little bit on upside. There's no doubt that this year is the best you're going to see from John Franklin Myers. And I'm not knocking him. It's just the normal arc of a career. Now, if he can sustain it, he's a better player than Malcolm Roach. But they said we got a younger guy That'd be a little bit cheaper, and we can coach up a little bit more, put in a more high-profile position this year to be the guy at that spot. And we think that we can get similar production. And I think it's a decent bet for the Broncos to make. But that's also what I'm saying at inside linebacker by choosing Justin Stranad over Alex Singleton. With the track record of both players, the more sure bet at this point is Alex Singleton. But you save where you can save, and if you have a viable option that is cheaper and has room to grow, then you put that guy in the spot. And that's what I think Justin Stranad is. And I'm of the mind that you give this Dre Greenlaw thing another shot. I don't see how all three of them are on the Denver Broncos next year. How is that all going to work? And how is Justin Stranad and Alex Singleton going to sign up for that? Dre Greenlaw, maybe his options are a bit more limited given that he was dealing with injuries this year. But George Paton said it at his end of season press conference. Like, he expects Justin Stranad and Alex Singleton to have interest from other teams in the league, which drives up the price. So if you could give the Dre Greenlaw thing another go, you also have the draft, and who knows if the Broncos could grab somebody for that spot in the draft to play behind a Dre Greenlaw. And then you have Justin Stranad. But listening to George Paton, he's great at hedging his bet. But I take him at his word that he would like both players back. But he's also hedging because if somebody comes in with a big contract offer, the Broncos aren't going to match it. I just think, why not be proactive? And just be like, go to Justin Stranad and say, you're our guy. We want you at that spot. Here's a contract like they did with Malcolm Roach. And if down the line free agency unfolds and you think you could bring Alex Singleton back for a decent price, then great. But the Broncos made their choice between Malcolm Roach and John Franklin Myers. I just think they should make a similar choice at inside linebacker with Justin Stranad and Alex Singleton. But I would imagine some clarity on that position is the next thing to come out of the Denver Broncos. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313 on Palczewski staying and John Franklin Myers going, and also what you would prefer the inside linebacker room to look like for the Denver Broncos. Want to, and this will be a good segue into my conversation with Hugh. We are a couple of days away from the Switchbacks season opener, and there's certainly a lot of intrigue around this team in league circles because of all the moves they made this offseason. Most notably, letting James Chambers and Stephen Hogan go and elevating Alan McCann, long assistant under Brendan Burke, and then Hoagie, and then Chambo. And now Alan McCann has taken over head coaching duties for the Switchbacks team. And then they went out and made a lot of moves. And as I look at this season, I think one of my biggest questions that comes to my mind is health. That was something that Brad Estes, the president of the club, talked to me about when when the team made the announcement that they were making a coaching change. He talked about health, talked about guys' availability, and how maybe there could be some different ideas when it comes to that to preserve the health of the players that are on the switchbacks, and Alan McCann says that this team is at least in much better shape health-wise going into this year than they were one season ago.
Tony's been really, really good. There's consistent testing. That has made way more players way more available regularly, even in training sessions. So we're now not having to, like we were in previous years, having to get lads from the academy and things like that. So that's making the training environment more competitive. It's making the pictures more real. It's making what it look like on the weekend either get exposed or, okay, we've got all the top pros in, or no, it's looking close to what we need to, and we just have a slight adjustment here. Or it's not, and we have a huge adjustment here, but it's real picture. So that's been a huge, huge help, and Tony's a big, big part of that.
Tony, obviously, their athletic trainer this year. So they're healthier than they have been. And I think it's a good point that Alan brings up. Now they can really evaluate their roster, and I think health kept them from being able to do that so many times. And the natural inclination and look, you see this with the Denver Nuggets right now. You've seen it with the Avs earlier this season, even the Broncos late last year, right? The idea that it's going to look different when player X comes back, whether it's Aaron Gordon or Gabriel Landeskog or J.K. Dobbins. When it comes back, when we get this guy back, then we'll get an accurate view of just how good we are. Well, we waited longer on Gabriel Landeskog. We're still waiting on Aaron Gordon. Maybe he's back tomorrow night against the Knicks. And then, but for the switchbacks, and for the Broncos, J.K. Dobbins never came back. But for the switchbacks, they just never got those guys healthy to be able to evaluate what moves they needed to make. And so that's what Alan is talking about when he says the picture is clearer. So you have a healthier team, and based on the moves that this team made, they have more depth than they have. Here's Captain Matt Mahoney, who's back again this year, to the delight of many Switchbacks fans and to the delight of me, because I think Matt Mahoney is a great player and one of the best defenders in the league, and the Switchbacks would be silly to let him go, but they haven't. He's back with the club, and he's talking about how much depth this team has.
I think for the first time, really, in the 6 years I've been here, there is competition in every single spot, which I think breeds real success. So, everybody wanted to go out and make each other better and try to win that spot for Saturday. But yeah, whoever's in goal, I mean, there's a reason that they're both in the building. There's a reason that everyone's in the building, and whoever it is, I mean, we trust them fully.
And I mentioned that was an answer to my question, because I asked about the slightly different looking goalkeeper room. Christian Herrera, who the Switchbacks won a title with, is still on the team, but they bring in a very high profile goalkeeper in Colin Shuttler from Orange County. So there's real competition at that spot, and there's, to Matt's point, there's a lot of competition in a lot of different areas. And it's funny when I hear some of the Switchbacks talking about the depth, and Niall McCabe, who's one of the new assistants this year, talked about it's no longer 1 through 11 for soccer teams anymore. It's 1 through 18. It's 1 through 20. It's depth. Where have we heard the depth conversation? How much more important it is to have depth. We've heard this in the NBA. We've heard this in the NHL. We've heard this with our hometown teams in those two leagues. How important it is to have more depth, and here are the Switchbacks with that same mentality as well. A lot of really intriguing pieces have been brought in. Are they all going to work the way the Switchbacks will want? Odds are no. But it's hard to see a spot that was not addressed in a significant way this offseason by the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. And I'm very curious, as much as I tried to get it out of Alan McCann today when I was at training. I do not know how they're going to line up on Saturday. One of these days, I will reach the level where I can be trusted with a secret like the Switchback starting 11 on that Saturday, but that time has clearly not arrived yet. But I'm genuinely intrigued by what this team looks like. I think one spot or a couple of spots that I think are cemented, that I absolutely know who's going to be in there. It's going to be Matt Mahoney and it's going to be Talon Maples, one of their new additions coming up I-25 from Albuquerque. Those two have the chance to be the best center back duo in the league. Unequivocally. And that's where it all starts. The key for this season for the Colorado Springs Switchbacks, as Alan McCann laid out, it is clearly goal prevention. You don't forget about the other aspect of the game. The Switchbacks need to have bona fide goal scorers, right? They need that too. But you have to have a top priority. You have to have something that you think, we got to get this right first. And clearly, it's goal prevention. They've got to do a better job of preventing goals because last year there were just some really bad goals that this team allowed at the worst possible times that would keep them from getting results. So that's where most of the attention is on. A lot of the intrigue is certainly on some of the attacking pieces that they've added, but the key for the Switchbacks this season is going to be goal prevention. No, none of those cheap goals. That's the goal this year for Colorado Springs. And Alan McCann feels like if they cut down on those, then they're going to be right back where he, this team, and you as Switchbacks fans expect them to be. And one thing that has stuck out to me about Alan McCann, and I know Alan, I've known Alan, but now that he's taken over the mantle and he's the mouthpiece for this team, he doesn't just talk about what they're doing this year. He's talking about what they're doing over the next 5 to 10 years, which is being where you expect them to be year in and year out. Lot of juice down at Widener Field. Lot of excitement there. And we'll see. Our first look will be Saturday. Switchbacks on the road against El Paso. You can hear the game if you'd like to listen on Extra Sports 1300. Speaking of the Switchbacks, I want to bring Hugh Johnson into the conversation here, the Switchbacks beat writer for the Gazette. What is he thinking about this team as we are just a couple of days away from the season opener? That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Busy weekend in Colorado Springs. Both of our college hockey teams are in the postseason, and our local soccer team is kicking off their season. And the only man that has more skin in the game when it comes to those three teams than me is Hugh Johnson, the beat writer for the Gazette, who joins me now after I mute that annoying stuff. What is up, Hugh?
Hey Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Do you have a nickname for this time of year, like the perfect storm or anything like that? Because your beats converge and they heat up at this time.
Yeah, definitely. I do not have a nickname. Maybe in the paper tomorrow, I might call the coverage of all three teams the triple threat. We don't know yet. I'm trying to get that into the designers, but it's not quite as bad as October when the switchbacks are ending and Colorado College and Air Force are just beginning. I'd say October is a little bit scarier.
Oh, well, that's good. Not that I had a ton of sympathy for you, but I am glad to hear that this is not the worst time of year for you or the busiest. No. I just, before you came on, I was talking about the switchbacks and going through a lot of what Alan McCann has said. But one of my takeaways from that season opening press conference, and even being out there at training today, there's a little juice with this team that I don't know that necessarily was there last year. Is that me being a prisoner of the moment, or I'll bounce it off of you? What do you think?
Not at all. And there are certainly signs. I mean, I remember James Chambers and Stephen Hogan talking about getting the right characters, the right people in the building too. But it seems like with what Coach McCann has done here this season, you're starting to see the fruits of that labor. Talking to Kyle Vassell the other day last week, he said bringing back Speedy Williams. He has such a calming presence in the locker room. It was huge for him. He's coming into this season after not quite getting the season he wanted, very truncated. He came in late after finishing his season overseas. He's coming into this one with a fresh perspective and just a clean start, wanted to play his best soccer. You see it in Yosuke Hanya as well. He's fully removed from the injury he suffered when the Switchbacks won the championship. He made a great play their last preseason game, and he's been good all preseason. I think I saw a social media post of him, I think it was at a wedding, in his Reflections jersey, the Switchbacks new jersey, or not the new ones, the ones that came out, I believe, last year. It denotes that it's home for him. It denotes that there's a feeling of gratitude, and there's just a welcoming atmosphere. So that energy level, you're not alone in that. I'm seeing it as well.
What do you think? And you know Alan as well as I do, but now he's sitting in the big chairs, so to speak. What do you think is going to be the staple of an Alan McCann coach team?
Honestly, I just think it's going to be accountability. I think it's going to be the fact that these guys each and every week are going to be giving it their all. And that what touched me about yesterday's press conference was when he said he brought in Niall McCabe, who comes from Louisville City FC, because he's a serial winner. I think that there's no more excuses. There's no more. And like I said yesterday, the Switchbacks have done phenomenal things as a club thus far. But to become that consistently great team, that consistent contender, I think that's what you're going to see Coach McCann striving for. And I think that that's what he's going to be known for when this is all said and done, if he succeeds.
Well, we'll see how it all comes together. At least our first impression Saturday against El Paso, and then also this weekend you have both hockey teams playing in their respective postseasons. I'll ask you a question kind of about both of them combined, and then we'll branch off and talk about each one. How much did the perspective or the feeling around these two teams change last weekend versus, let's say that the season was 2 games shorter for both Air Force and CC? How much different would the feeling have been then as opposed to what they were able to do this past weekend?
I think it's bigger for Air Force. They were coming in kind of having squandered some of the series against the bottom of the standings. You look at Army, you look at Mercyhurst, and just an ability to climb into the top four positions in Atlantic Hockey America and just not getting it done for a team has been as good as Air Force has been, winning at Holy Cross, sweeping Sacred Heart all 4 games this season. You'd expect more, but for them to go out and to beat Bentley at their home and sweep them for the first time in conference play in the regular season, that's very impressive. On the CC, the win at Minnesota Duluth was big. That's a top 10 win. Caden Mberico that Friday night had 39 saves, a season high. He was playing well. Two of the top line guys, Owen Beckner and Brett Link, they get some goals if you like to see that. But on Saturday, you kind of have a reversion to the mean with what we've seen with CC. They had a lead. They lost in the third quarter. It ends up in a tie and a shootout, and they have 6 ties already this season to go along with 11 overtime games, in most of them in conference play, I believe. So with CC, it's a little bit you like the high point of Friday night, but you leave the weekend feeling more of the same.
You mentioned the number of ties and overtime games that CC has played. What has been missing, either in your opinion or Chris Mayott's opinion, that has not made more of those results end up being not needing overtime, or with CC ending up winning the game? What is that kind of missing piece here to Colorado College that maybe they hope to get this weekend?
I think part of it, a big thing, is just not being 5-on-5 hockey. It's 3-on-3 in the overtime, and CC, for whatever reason this year, just doesn't have that. You talk about what they were able to do 2 seasons ago when they were mere fractions of percentage points away from the NCAA tournament. Noah Laba led the country in overtime game winners. They just haven't had that bounce this season, and the shootouts. I'm not a goalie, so I couldn't tell you how hard it is to stop one, but having seen the shootout live against Denver and against Western Michigan, it didn't look like the shots they put on were particularly difficult to save. And so now it's the postseason, it's the tournament. There's no more 3-on-3. It's all 5-on-5. No more ties, no more shootouts. Coach Mayotte said he likes the way his team is playing 5-on-5, and I think we'll see that this weekend if they get there.
What's the, or who, I should ask, is the X factor for Colorado College?
I think there's a couple answers to that. Obviously, let's get it out of the way right now. Caden Mberico is obviously, the way he's playing 4 goals in his last 4 games, just allowing, he's going to go for his 128th appearance, which would put him most all time in the program. So he's got to play well. Max Lindgren, to answer your question more specifically, would probably be my pick. He joined the team. He comes from the pros, not NHL level, but just some minor affiliates. He's been a revelation for the Tigers. 10 points in 16 games here in the second half of the season, 6 goals and 4 assists. He scored last week against Minnesota Duluth. He had a goal taken off that might have turned the weekend around for CC against Western Michigan, who they'll be facing this weekend. So it's been him. He's got that moxie, and he's been a driver for the Tigers offense.
Hugh Johnson, my guest, outstanding writer for the Gazette, talking college hockey playoffs, conference tournaments beginning this weekend for both Colorado College and Air Force. On the other side, for Air Force, you've seen this as much as I, or maybe not as much as I have, because I predate you in this market, but you've seen it plenty. Frank Serratori's teams, out of the holiday break, looking like a much different team and building into one of those teams that you, quote unquote, don't want to play, right?
Yeah.
Granted, Dominic Wasik, right, will do the same thing for the Falcons as we do the Tigers.
Gotcha.
He's the given. Who else do you think, to you, is going to be key if Air Force is going to pull off what would be an upset going on the road to Robert Morris?
That's a great question. You got to look at what the younger guys are doing. I look
Mm.
at that. Even from last season, you can see it. That Sam Stitz, Nick Sadjovic, Will Dawson line has always been a great line for generating offense, hunting pucks, and finding the back of the net. Will Dawson, right now, I think he's got 3 goals in his last 4 games. So look for him to continue that. I mentioned the younger guys. I don't know if there's anyone been hotter than Oliver Gnest, who had a hat trick against Mercyhurst in a tie, but still he's
Yeah.
found his game. Cole Christian has had a game winner. I think I looked it up the other day, and 5 of their last 6 wins, the game winners have been scored by freshmen and sophomores. Coach Serratori has talked glowingly about the recruiting efforts, the 2 classes he's brought in. They're building depth in that area, and of course, you can't forget about the upperclassmen as well. Chris Hedden is having one of the best season of his career at Air Force, and also the group of 6 defensemen. Coach has talked about it all year and how that's one of their best groups ever. So, really, I go with the younger guys in terms of the forwards, and maybe the older guys when we're talking about the defense.
Well, both teams playing this weekend again. CC against Western Michigan and Air Force against Robert Morris on Extra Sports 1300 and KVOR. Specifically, KVOR with hockey this weekend, but switchbacks here on Extra Sports 1300. We got 2 of the 3 covered. Hugh's got us one up because he is your one-stop shop for the Tigers, Falcons, and switchbacks this weekend. Check out his work in print online at gazette.com. Hugh, appreciate the time, bud, and we'll see you out at Widener Field next week, huh?
Sounds good. That sounds like a good time.
All right.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, my pleasure, Hugh. Keep up the good work. That is Hugh Johnson, outstanding writer for the Gazette. Playoff time in college hockey. Season goes fast, and the switchback season approaches quickly. And we are here with all of those things happening at once. Plus, not one of Hugh's beats, but Air Force men's and women's basketball getting ready for their conference tournaments. It's a busy time for our teams here in Colorado Springs. We'll take a break and have more Drive Time Sports after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Think you have the luck of the Irish? Enter to win our pot full of cash, $5,000 to be exact. So this will be a St. Paddy's Day you'll never forget. It's our Luck of the Irish giveaway. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com now to enter this national contest, which is sponsored locally by the fine folks at Bullseye Plumbing, Heating, and Air. No luck needed when Bullseye's on target. Good stuff from Hugh Johnson. Covers the Switchbacks and both college hockey teams for the Gazette. One other beat that he is on this weekend is also the Preps beat, but everybody at the Gazette is on the Preps beat at all times with so many schools to cover. But good stuff there from Hugh. Make sure you check out his stuff this weekend. And again, Switchbacks Saturday night on Extra Sports 1300, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kick. And then all three potentially Air Force hockey games will be on KVOR. So more reminders forthcoming, but if you're looking for Air Force hockey, it will be on KVOR. Switchbacks will be on Extra. Air Force women's basketball with me from Vegas will be on Extra Sports as well. And then we got other things going on too. Avs tomorrow playing the Dallas Stars. Sunday, the Minnesota Wild. So a lot going on. Check your local listings, and the best place to do that is go to our live sports schedule on extrasports1300.com. And you could see all of our games and which station you can find them on. Ray Dominguez. Hi. Can we go to the text line here?
Yes.
Please and thank you.
Yes. All right. Someone said from Tom.
Okay.
Brian, you still have to take responsibility for the Josh Rosen talk. You fed us.
I was hoping you didn't want to.
It was the first one that popped up.
Oh, you're just going order in the order in which we received them. I feel like I have numerous times now where I have not taken full accountability because I'm not quitting him yet. Justin Fields. Just wait and see where he ends up. Now, Josh Rosen, I have taken responsibility. Tom, how dare you? I lost that battle a long time ago and admitted as much. Justin Fields, I don't recall. Allow me to take it didn't work out with Justin Fields. There's me taking accountability. All right, next one.
From the 719, in Sakic we trust.
When it comes to the Nicolas Waugh trade today for the Avs acquiring their third-line centerman, just not the one that you were hoping if you're an Avs fan. Now, I do think you have to say, and Chris McFarland's the guy that's at the helm now. Sakic's still around, so his aura is still with this Colorado Avalanche team. But the front office, whether it's Sakic, whether it's McFarland, I think what they have done in the wake of the Mikko Rantanen trade, I think you have to have that sentiment because they traded Mikko Rantanen. Look at what Marty Necas is doing. Look at how they were able to acquire Brock Nelson in the season he is having. That was the big move where you're like, oh, I don't know, and this is all going to work. It hasn't worked to the extent the Avalanche or you would want it to yet, but you can see all of these moves working. And so I think that's the right mentality to have here. And Nicolas Waugh, I don't know that you're going to be extremely disappointed with the play of Nicolas Waugh. You just have to calibrate what your expectations for him are, considering he is not Nazem Kadri. This is not what the Avalanche acquired today. But if you look at him as a true traditional bottom six centerman, I think Nick Waugh is going to be exactly what you want if you're an Avalanche fan and what Jared Bednar will want, because he talks so much about the mentality, the identity of those lines. And I think Waugh fits in very well with that.
All right, from Brett. It might be actually interesting to compare the fourth quarter free throws of the Thunder versus the fourth quarter free throws of the rest of the league, or see where the Thunder lie in overall free throw attempts category.
You're not going to like the answer. The Thunder in fourth quarter free throw attempts this season are not in the top 10. Now, remember what the Thunder were at the beginning of the year. The Oklahoma City Thunder were sitting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in fourth quarters. So it's very difficult to pull the data in games that SGA is playing. We are not ESPN stats and info, but Ray and I have both been working diligently behind the scenes during the breaks to try and find a more accurate view, because for the first 2 months of the season, OKC was blowing out every team and SGA was sitting in the fourth quarter. So the games weren't tight enough for the Thunder to do the stuff that they do in order to get to the free throw line. So if you're just looking at big picture, then I mean, the numbers say that the Thunder are not one of the top 10 teams in the league, but I think that piece of context is incredibly important, because you really have to look. Maybe I'll do this on my flight to Vegas tomorrow, although it's not that long of a flight. Maybe it is circumstantial evidence, but it's circumstantial evidence that the Nuggets, the Knicks, Spurs, et cetera, everybody is talking about this. Every city that the Thunder go to, or every opponent that goes to OKC, is inevitably talking about free throws and the inconsistency in the whistle. This isn't a court of law. Circumstantial evidence is admissible in this court. And the circumstantial evidence is that when Shai is on the floor and the games are tied in the end, the Thunder seem to get more of the benefit of the whistle than their opponents.
Yeah. According to ESPN, they're not even top. They're 14th in just free throw attempts in general.
Mm-hmm.
Fans are going to like this. Nuggets are 4th.
Now, I
think the Utah game helped that one.
Right. They were 20th, and then the Utah game happened,
yeah.
and then they moved up. But and this is where you have to be fair, and why I say that David Adelman is not looking to allow his team to maul Shai. He just wants Jokic to get the same whistle.
Mm-hmm.
The Nuggets are not opposed to shooting a ton of free throws. Jokic, we have to be fair. Jokic, Luka, all of these guys can be a little bit much when trying to draw fouls. SGA is at the top of the list. He has mastered this skill. And it's why I say I don't want the Thunder to have fewer free throws. I want their opponents to have more, because I feel like the defensive end is what I keep looking at and saying this is the thing that bothers me more. The defensive end bothers me more than SGA does.
Right. And it looks like free throw attempts per player, SGA second.
Behind Luka.
Yeah.
And Luka right now is getting shredded in the national media.
Yeah, he is.
For what he's doing. And
I don't know tonight.
I don't know if you've noticed this too, not you, but the collective you. Jokic is starting to get a fair amount of heat too. Now, not when he goes up against OKC, because they're at the top of the pyramid. Nobody is going to complain more about OKC, more about the opponent of OKC. But Jokic outside of that, especially after the Utah game, he's getting to that Luka level where he's really bothering people with how much he's trying to get. So this is also why David Adelman is doing this.
But the funny thing about that is Jokic in the beginning of the season didn't complain. And somebody asked him about it, and he said, I'm trying this year not to complain and not to get angry. But I think he got pushed to such a limit where he wasn't getting the calls, where he's now complaining, and now it's become a problem.
Right. But that's also part of the reason why David Adelman is saying the things that he's saying in the media, because he doesn't want Nikola Jokic to have to do this, to have to politic and argue and risking a technical and throwing him off of his game. This is why David Adelman has been so vocal about the officiating in the last couple of weeks, because he sees the frustration on Jokic's face. And it's two things. One, he wants Jokic to get a better whistle, but also he wants to take it upon himself to even things out by politicking instead of Nikola Jokic doing it.
We just need to see a Chris Finch type attitude from Adelman and see him get a technical and get rejected. And I actually apologize. I refreshed it. It looks like Luka's won.
Wait, sorry. Did he just go to the free throw line?
Yeah, no, Luka's won. No, Shea is 3. Sorry. Shea's 3. 2 is Denny. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his name. Advia, yeah.
From the Portland?
Yeah.
They talked about him the other day, too.
You want to know who's dead last?
Who's dead last?
Tyus Jones.
We second guess the acquisition of Tyus Jones because he doesn't get to the free throw line.
Right.
Enough. All right. Well, I mean, we'll see with the how much Luka and Jokic complain tonight.
Right. Well,
that's just one of the storylines we're watching.
Oh, there's another player on the other team who complains a lot too. So,
are you talking about Braun?
I'm talking about Braun, but we'll see if he plays. But when it comes to the top two, it's Luka and Jokic.
When it comes to complaining,
well, in this game, yeah.
So that's tonight, 8:00 on Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow, big day as well, because I think the bigger of the two games on the back-to-back for the Nuggets is tomorrow night against New York, because that's a team that's more on their level than the Lakers are. Tonight's all downside. Nuggets lose, the sky's going to continue to fall. If they win tonight, it's like, oh, well. And then the next game will be the big game.
I think it goes like you said. How do they? If they win, how do they win? Right. If they come out and it's like a dominant type win, then okay, maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And tomorrow, bigger day for the Avalanche, as they will match up with the Dallas Stars. They don't play two games back to back, but they'll play Dallas tomorrow and Minnesota on Sunday. So very consequential games for the Avalanche, more consequential games for the Avs, but that leads up to Monday in OKC in Denver rematch. A big weekend. And we talked about the big weekend it is with CC and Air Force in the hockey playoffs, Air Force basketball, women's basketball getting underway in Vegas, switchback starting, and then you go up the road to Denver, and big few days coming up for the Nuggets and the Avalanche as well. We'll be talking about it all. That's for sure. That'll do it for me today. I will be talking to you, hopefully, plane willing, from Vegas tomorrow. Looking forward to that. If you did not hear the first hour of the show, you're going to hear it. My thoughts on Nicholas Waugh next.